Now, with as much water as these large tires are going to be throwing up, that water goes into the atmosphere and dissipates very rapidly. It's like having 26 times 4 drying machines out there, so it doesn't take long. And with the very soft compounds that these rain tires are made of, they cannot live for more than 5, 6, maybe 10 laps maximum under dry conditions.
Good look there of the pit lane here on the Ile Notre Dame, site of the, or at least some of the games of the Montreal Olympiad. In fact, right behind the garages there you see that boat. It is on a rowing canal, and that's one of the shuttles that has allowed media to go from one end of this very narrow, long race course to the other, right out there where all of the sculling and the various 4s and 8s rode in the 1976 Olympic Games. And as you can see, water very much a part of this Montreal circuit.
Both on the track and around it.
Exactly. You're looking at a camera from high above the French Pavilion, one of the architectural wonders on this park, which was also the site of the 67 Expo, a World's Fair here in Montreal, Canada. There you see Alain Prost leading the field very slowly onto the grid. To the left of your picture, the yellow helmet in the McLaren of Ayrton Senna, the reigning world champion, who guns it down the pit lane now to scrub the tires, and pull into his final position. Remember, once the cars are all in place, we'll have a Formula One standing start. When the cars are all in place and a green flag waves from the back of the field, they'll be put under starter's orders. They'll get a red light, and then somewhere from 4 to 10 seconds later, a green light, and we will be underway.
An important thing is not to try and spin the rear tires with these wet conditions. The teams are out there with brooms, towels, mops, paper, anything to try and get as dry condition as possible under their particular car's starting place.
You see debris blowing across the racetrack.
The wind's been crazy here for days.
There was another race held earlier in the day, and a lot of sedans went off the racetrack. There is dirt all around this racetrack at the various corners. The cars to the right of your picture are likely to have the better way. Now we're seeing yellow flags.
It's Stefan Johansson. Stefan Johansson has his arm up, as does the Tyrrell driver Alvaretto. And right in front of our booth, we have Eddie Cheever with his arms up. We had three stalled cars all right on the right-hand side of the grid. They will have to restart as soon as possible.
Now, that debris on the racetrack is a result of the winds. I mentioned they must have been gale force winds that ripped the awnings off of the hospitality areas, and it has really been a challenge to these teams to keep things in order. Now, there you see the car of, looks like Andrea De Cesaris there, and his Dallara Group. Okay. Good idea. We don't want to waste any racing. No, they'll give them a lap. In Montreal, Quebec, Canada, where the cars have rolled off the grid and we're preparing for the start of the Canadian Grand Prix. Now you see the puddles standing on the racetrack. The cars have already made one lap, and in preparation for a start, several cars stalled. So the mechanics came over the wall, got the cars restarted. Nobody changed tires, and there's a good close look at the condition of the racetrack, John. I expect these rain tires won't be on for very long.
Well, one problem with the rain tires is that the compound is extremely soft. What you want to do is build up heat under wet conditions. So when the heat goes up to a point with this very soft compound under dry conditions, they're not going to be able to last for maybe 6, 7, maximum 10 laps. Get ready down in the pit lane, Marty. There's going to be a lot of people headed your way.
I got to tell you, I can see all of them loading up. They've got both rains and slicks ready, but notice how quickly the pavement has dried out here in pit lane. We're predicting, some of the teams are saying, between 4 and 8 laps, they'll be coming in for the slicks if it stays dry.
And that's the key, Marty. If it stays dry, there are columns of cumulus clouds all around us, and it might very well rain during the course of this Canadian Grand Prix. So stay with us, folks. The next 2 hours should be pretty exciting. Italians dominate the field. There are 10 in the race, followed by 4 Brazilian drivers, 3 each from Great Britain and France, and 1 driver representing the United States, Austria, Germany, Spain, Belgium, and Sweden. On board with Sandro Nannini in the Benetton, and you can see that there is water being kicked up, but the racing line is drying very quickly.
It's drying down the straightaways, but understandably, in the braking areas where the drivers want it to be dry, it's still quite wet. Right there, breaking into that hairpin turn, there were actually puddles on the track. There's nothing worse, Bob, than to have a half-wet, half-dry track. They would rather have it all wet, drenched, pouring down rain than what these gentlemen have to go through on that very first lap coming up in just a few minutes.
It's a very very long, narrow race course set on the Ile Notre Dame in the St. Lawrence River here in Montreal. We're on an island. In fact, it's an island that took part in the games of the '76 Olympics here in Montreal. Just behind the pit garages is the rowing area, a long straight canal, which was used for the annual Montreal Canadian Grand Prix Mechanics boat race. There you see in the background the Jacques Cartier Bridge in the distance. And in the foreground, that body of water is the rowing channel that was used in the '76 games.
I think Nigel Mansell may have just pulled into the pits on that one shot. Everyone else turned to the right, and Nigel Mansell pulled into the pits.
So we may have the first strategic move in the chess game that will be the Canadian Grand Prix. You watch Ayrton Senna. To the right of your picture there, pulling into the traditional pole man's position is this man, Alain Prost of France, the key domino.
Nigel Mansell in the pits.
In a driver changes yet to come here in 1988. Now in the pits, we've got a couple of cars in there. Marty, what's going on?
Well, strategy is the key word. Caught one of the team by surprise, but Nigel Mansell goes screaming back out as about 3 or 4 teams have come in very quickly and decided to go back to race slicks.
They will have to start from the pit lane because, as you can see, the cars are in their place. We'll get a red light in the upper left-hand corner, and now they let him leave. They let Mansell leave the pits, and there goes Nannini. Now we've got a problem, but they're waving the green flag. Are they going to start the Grand Prix with 2 cars on the race course? I can't believe it. They are. We've got a red light somewhere out there on the race course as you watch Alain Prost pull away. There you see your leader, Alain Prost, beats his teammate Ayrton Senna in the first turn, and now we've got all kinds of cars piling up. Looks like one of the Ferraris got a little bit sideways there as the drivers struggle with traction on a rapidly drying but still quite damp racetrack. And somewhere out in front of them, Nigel Mansell, who was supposed to start in the 5th position, and Sandro Nannini, who was supposed to start 13th. I can't believe they released him from the pit lane.
Well, they're certainly going to be checking the rule books on that one. The pit lane has been closed, actually, officially for the last 15 minutes. And how they ever let him through. And if it is wrong, the Quebec organizers here will be heavily fined for that mistake.
Well, there you see the early runners. It's Prost, followed by Senna, Patrese, and it looks like one of the, I guess that's Berger in the Ferrari back there in 4th position. Alain Prost doing something he hasn't had a chance to do a lot this year, lead a Formula One race. You recall 2 weeks ago at Phoenix, it was his first lead since the first race of the season in Rio way back in March.
These big tires on the Formula One cars, they're like drying machines going over this wet track. It won't take but a few laps with everyone. They've taken a different line and dried out different parts of the track. You may see them actually come off the dry line and go onto the wet to try and save these very soft tires.
Alain Prost goes by, and now there's the young Spaniard. That is Sala in the Minardi. He has spun and made contact with the outside wall.
I think he spun in one of the fastest parts of the track, although it looked like there was very little damage to the car, and he was walking away. Quite lucky man to have a spin at that particular part of the track and be able to get out with no serious damage to himself and the car. Up front is the McLaren.
That was Pierluigi Martini. That was Sala's teammate in the Minardi, so count Martini out, and up front, Alain Prost leads Ayrton Senna as the McLarens once again pull away. Now one of the Delaras is in the pits for tire change. Can't make out.
Let them call it.
So the strategy is developing rapidly here in Canada. But the two cars up front are still on rain tires. There you see the treaded tires on the wheels of Alain Prost of France, the all-time leader in Formula One victories.
I have to emphasize, Bob, these tires just will not last. I know I'm repeating myself, but the entire pit lane is going to be very full here very soon. Outside of our commentator's booth, we can see everyone setting up, and it looks like a little bent left front tire there on the Tyrrell of Alvareto. I'm going to say that the pit lane is going to be extremely busy here in the next few laps. They're just not going to be able to continue this way.
There you see Michele Alboreto in the blue and gold helmet pulling into the Tyrrell pits. Looks like he's got something a lot more serious than a mere tire change coming up.
Well, remember, he crashed that car in the warm-up quite heavily.
Now here you see Nannini being overtaken by the race leader, and I don't know how they're going to score this one.
Well, Nannini has to be a brave man out there on the racing slicks because there still are puddles, and it only takes a few millimeters of water to make that car absolutely lift up. And here comes Senna sliding by, not sliding by, powering by his teammate. It almost looked like Prost had a problem. He does. He's going into the pits. Maybe not a problem, but just for a tire change. We'll see.
The pit entry is on one of the most terrifying turns in all of Formula One. There you see Alain Prost pulling into the McLaren pits for his change to slick tires. Meanwhile, Senna has assumed the lead. And I was going to point out that Senna, of all the drivers in the field, got closest to his Friday time. As John mentioned at the top of the show, virtually all the qualifying times that set the grid were achieved on Friday. Quite unusual that they did not improve in the Saturday session, which was very windy and run under a threat of rain, and no one came as close to his Friday time as did Ayrton Senna. That's not good news for the rest of the field. Alain Prost makes his way back out onto the racetrack. Meanwhile, Marty is in the Tyrrell pits.
Well, there's all kinds of oil all over the back part of the engine in the Michele Alboreto Tyrrell, and they are pushing it back into the garage. They haven't given up hope of getting into this race, but this is going to be very costly to their chances.
John mentioned it earlier on that Michele Alboreto crashed this car, backed it hard into the wall during the warm-up this morning and knocked the wing off. Looks like maybe he disrupted some of the oil system on that car.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that they waived the 4-hour rule this morning, and here we have Ayrton Senna coming around Nigel Mansell. So at the moment, you might have to say that the wets are still faster than the slicks because Mansell is on the slicks and Ayrton Senna is having an easy time for him. Now, the reason Prost came in and not both of them on the same lap is that there just isn't room for two cars in the pit at the same time. It's a managerial call who comes in when. Let's see if Senna makes another lap on the dry, on the wets, or if he's going to come in and change to the dries. He's going to make another lap, Bob.
Ayrton Senna is your leader, followed by Riccardo Patrese and Terry Boutsen. Williams running second and third in the Canadian Grand Prix. And we'll be back, and we'll keep you updated on the pit action. Stay right there. What else can you do but shrug your shoulders, Eddie? Indeed, how do you slow the McLarens? Winners of 19 of the last 21 Formula One races. And they finished 1-2 here a year ago in Canada, but will not happen this year. Alain Prost has already retired his McLaren with suspension damage, as you heard. Tarquini went off in a much more spectacular fashion at the end of the front straightaway. Eddie Cheever has parked with mechanical problems. Michele Alboreto is out. Pierluigi Martini with a Minardi. Gerhard Berger's Ferrari also out of the race at this point. And the two men who started from the pit lane, that is, escaped the pit lane before the start of the race, Sandro Nannini and Nigel Mansell, are now shown as 5 laps down to the leader. So we suspect they have been penalized for making that pit exit. And we'll learn more on that as the day goes on. Meanwhile, you're looking at your leader, Riccardo Patrese. And as you recall, he led earlier this year in Rio. He has 2 Formula One victories to his credit, despite having competed in 180-plus Formula One events. The all-time Methuselah among Formula One drivers is Riccardo Patrese.
Well, Riccardo, of course, individually has had a very long and illustrious career, but he hasn't had always the best equipment to go out and win races. The Williams package this year is very competitive, maybe the second most competitive package on the track. But he's still going to have to go out there and do something today to try and actually bring in another win.
There you see a battle on the racetrack briefly between Philippe Alliot and looks like Derek Warwick. I believe Alliot, I believe, is a lap down, so Warwick is actually trying to pass him simply to move up the racetrack. Warwick shown in 4th position right now. There you see Derek making his way around. He had a Titanic accident at this racetrack a year ago at that very tight turn 13 section at the pit entrance that I mentioned a little bit earlier.
He set the altitude record here last year, Bob. There was just a little bit of dirt thrown up onto the circuit, and he hit that dirt under braking, hit a curb, and he must have been 6 or 7 feet off the ground.
Good look there at Derek Warwick, who beat Nigel Mansell in a golf game earlier this week and feels absolutely wonderful about that. Nigel, of course, a very good golfer. Derek getting a lot better as time goes by. You saw them trying to pick up the Martini wreck as the race continues. A quick look at the tail of your leader, excuse me, not your leader at this point, Ayrton Senna running in 3rd position. Things are really getting hectic out of here with all of the pit stops that we've had and the on and off rain conditions. It is not raining at present here in Canada, but it is very gray and it may come back at any moment.
Well, during the last shower, Senna certainly had to have some hair-raising moments out there on the slick tires. Again, it only takes a few millimeters of water to raise these cars completely off the ground, and that is not a comfortable feeling. The front tires are literally off the ground, have lost all adhesion, even contact with the paved pavement. Very hard to steer.
Now there's Terry Boutsen in the pits, meaning Riccardo Patrese has nobody between himself and Ayrton Senna coming up now, inheriting 2nd position. Terry Boutsen quickly flips that Williams with Renault V10 power back onto the pit lane and onto the racetrack. There is Senna making his way around in search of the leader, Riccardo Patrese.
And the second he left the pits, it started to downpour again. boys are setting up to bring in this race leader, Riccardo Patrese. They have the tires back out, ready to go. You can see them setting up there. They are the gentlemen in the yellow, blue, and red jumpers there. They have all their rain gear on.
And behind them you see a pit stop going on with the Leighton House March team. I believe that was Mauricio Gugelmin in his pit because his teammate Capelli has already had some off-track excursions. Now we're back up to Mr. Senna once again, and the Williams team is just about ready to spring into action. I imagine we'll see the other car in. Now that is Pierluigi Martini's car. That's been sitting out there on the racetrack since the early going. That's not a new casualty of this race.
They had to move it out of there, Bob. It was in a very bad spot, and race cars sitting on the side of a circuit are like magnets. Somehow they attract other race cars.
Now let's keep an eye on this guy for a while. Ayrton Senna is on slick tires, and as we said, it is raining on the front portion of this racetrack where he is about to go right now. The acknowledged rain master in Formula One, who won his first victory at Portugal in 1985 in a downpour. He won races last year, the British Grand Prix, you'll remember, under monsoon conditions at Silverstone. Hockenheim, a couple of weeks later, also run in the rain, and then clinched his first world championship on a dampening track in Japan. There's Riccardo Patrese, his 182nd career Formula One start, and he has to know that right behind him is Mr. Senna. Oh, and we've got another car off. Looks like the other Minardi. This would be Luis Perez Sala, the Spaniard. I think that is the Minardi.
It's a very fast right-hand corner there, and again, it was probably part of the track that has gotten more damp, and he simply came into that corner. It looked like the back end lost control. You'll see a replay. There he is, sliding sideways. No tires there whatsoever. You saw the right suspension taking all of that impact, but luckily he is sliding. He is moving. His helmet crashed against the back of the roll bar. That's one headache for him tonight.
And so both of the Minardis are now out, and those are both of their new cars. That's all they've got, folks, and they have now wrecked them both here in Canada. You may have noticed in the background, and you will from time to time in our high shots, that there is sunshine out there on the racetrack. Now here are the March teammates. That is Capelli in front, Gugelmin behind, and it's a replay of an earlier incident. You see them skating around madly. Now you need to avoid each other here, fellas. Unlike our friends from the Dallara team, when Andrea De Trezeris pinched his own teammate Alex Caffey into the concrete at Phoenix 2 weeks ago. You have to watch out for your own guy, otherwise it's a real long walk back to the hotel after the race.
Capelli, in that shot, it was interesting to watch because Capelli was the one slipping and sliding, and he's the one who just changed to the slick tires, and his teammate Gugelmin was still on the wets trying to find a way around the sliding car of his teammate.
And there you see the interval. The leader, Patrese, went out of your picture. Now here's Mr. Senna, and you see he's sliding too. Even all of the Brazilian skills at 29 years of age, not enough to keep that car totally under control. Make the top five right now. Patrese, Senna, Felipe Alliot all the way up to third right now in the Lola with that 12-cylinder Chrysler-supported Lamborghini engine. Derek Warwick from USF&G Arrows team running in fourth position. In fifth is Nicola Larini. And let's go on. Sixth is René Arnoux in the Ligier. Getting up there once again. Seventh, Christian Danner. Alex Caffey runs eighth, and Andrea De Cesaris ninth. Terry Boutsen is in the 10th position. 11th, Jonathan Palmer. 12th, Nelson Piquet. 13th, Ivan Capelli in the March. And everybody else is a lap down. 13 cars on the lead lap at this point.
I'll never forget the first time Ayrton Senna really made a big push into Formula One in a rain situation. It was at Monte Carlo many years ago. He was driving the Tolman team, which turned into the Benetton team. And he started quite far back on the grid and was all the way up to just about catching Alain Prost when the checkered flag went out, which of course caused one heck of a commotion in the rule books with Jackie Hicks throwing the checkered flag because of the absolute downpour. I still feel that Hicks did the same thing, and so did many of the drivers. Even to go on with that story, that's when the points for that win of Alain Prost were reduced to half points rather than full points, which really cost him the World Championship against Niki Lauda.
He lost it by a half point. As you watch Ayrton Senna and the little vortexes off the top of the wing where it says Marlboro in the back. As the air is compressed over that wing, it squeezes out the moisture, and we see it in the form of a little cloud. Patrese is your leader. It's an exciting Canadian Grand Prix, and it'll be back after this. Eastern Time, 4:30 Pacific here on ESPN. Back in Canada, Bob Barsha, John Visignano are with you. It is raining once again on the Canadian Grand Prix, and Marty has more from the pit lane.
Well, you wondered what happened to Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. It's not a breakdown this time. The word we're getting is that little incident at the beginning of the race where he ran out of pit lane before the race started, he has been disqualified. Now, the big question we're trying to track down for you is why is Sandro Nannini still out there? Because he did the exact same thing. Meanwhile, the rain is pouring down again down here. We'll keep you posted. Will you send me a pair of flippers?
You may need an aqualung before this thing is over, Marty. It is really raining on the front side as you watch battles going on all around the racetrack. Stefan Johansson doing battle with young Italian Nicola Larini right there. And that is, I believe, the battle for 15th on the racetrack, although at this point, with all of the pit stops we've had, I honestly can't keep track of who is in what position. Larini and Johansson in the Onyx going after it there. Let's just enjoy the racing. Now you see the cars tippy-toeing around. There is the arrows of Derek Warwick. He may be on the slick race tires, and you can see the puddles beginning to form once again on the racetrack. There is a lineup that looks like Andrea De Cesaris and the Lola of Filipe Alliot getting a little sideways, and Alex Caffey bringing up the rear. No, I got him backwards. Caffey's in front, and De Cesaris passes Alliot in the Lola.
It's actually a very clean pass. I think Alliot let him by. Alliot is certainly having some handling problems there, slipping and sliding. And when you have Andrea De Cesaris that close to you, it makes everyone a little bit nervous. It's maybe better to have him in front of you than behind you trying to get by.
There you get a good look at Derek Warwick, who's had some real tough luck. Remember, he contacted Andrea De Cesaris at Phoenix 2 weeks ago and dropped out on about the 4th lap. He has had a tough time in the first few races of the year after a glorious run in Rio, and he is looking for important points here in Canada. And I'd have to say my strategy as a driver would be to just keep my car off of the walls, off of the other cars, out of the grass. Just stay on the racetrack, and you're likely to pick up points here as we look at a replay of De Cesaris' pass on the Frenchman Alliot.
Alliot definitely said, go ahead, Andrea. Just have it for a while. I'll follow and wait for you to do something wrong, and then we'll see who's the most clever person in half-wet, half-dry conditions.
The sparks off the titanium bump strips on the bottom of the car. Now he's with Riccardo Patrese, still shown as your leader. Second position is Ayrton Senna, 2.6 seconds in arrears, although we don't see him in the picture right now. If we get a chance watching our Canadian feed, we'll try to get some idea of how far Ayrton Senna is behind. By my unofficial reckoning, we have 15 of the 26 starters still in this race. And of those, 13 are on the lead lap. As you get a good close-up look there at Riccardo Patrese of Italy.
Riccardo Patrese, a man who also has somewhat of a reputation for being the rain master, which is a real credit to a Formula One driver. Some of the greatest drivers in the dry couldn't do anything whatsoever as soon as the first drops of rain come down, and some drivers actually do better. Hans Stuck was one of the most fabulous rain drivers. Of course, he was so darn fast. He always made some mistake over the hour-and-a-half period and didn't finish so well. And locking up the brakes, now you see what happens there. He goes from the wet to the dry. The dry just locks that brake up. The tire grabs and throws the whole car off balance. It's the most difficult thing to drive in these half-wet, half-dry conditions. And these three are just... The survivor of this pack is really going to be a brave man, back and forth. And that's Andrea De Cesaris and his teammate dicing away in these very slippery, sliding conditions.
Alex Caffey putting a pass there on Nicola Larini with De Cesaris waiting his turn. This is your leader, Riccardo Patrese, and we got a brief glimpse of the McLaren Honda behind them. Ayrton Senna running in second position and doing so very quietly at this point. Your leader, Patrese, is on the wet rain tires, and it is still raining here. This man, on the other hand, I believe is on slick tires. And so it is a real demonstration of driving skill for Ayrton Senna to stay in contact with the leader, Patrese, who has the wets.
You can see around that corner, Bob, just physically how much slower Senna was. I don't know how far back there Warwick is in third place, but man, and Senna has to be in absolute misery out there at this point. They brought him in early. They thought they were going ahead and have the advantage by switching to these absolutely treadless and somewhat less sticky, and have someone off going through the grass. Is a little agricultural racing. Again, that was that pack of three. That is the Lola, the Lola car going off through the grass.
Alliot out there in the green grass of the Ile Notre Dame in Canada. And Alliot having his hands full, still showed in 8th place, but he dropped a couple of positions with that little excursion. Now Ayrton Senna making his way around as once again the skies open on the front straightaway here. Whoa, and a little twitch there for the McLaren.
As you said at the top of the show, the McLarens are not invincible, and especially in a dice roll situation with this weather, they may have chosen the wrong tire or the wrong time to change the tire. All go around this circuit, they have huge cranes. They're very expensive to sit there for 4 days, but they can literally go ahead and pick up all the damaged equipment and set it on the other side of the guardrail. There aren't that many gates or fences that they can take these cars through on wreckers, so they have to have these numerous cranes sitting at every corner around the circuit to go ahead and just pick the cars up and put them down and out of harm's way. Ayrton Senna making it very wide on that particular corner. Again, he's got to be in trouble.
Running slicks on even the thinnest water makes the car hydroplane, and even a man with the consummate skills of Ayrton Senna cannot necessarily keep it on the racetrack at all times. But he did keep it off the walls, and if he can just keep circulating, he could pick up valuable points. His teammate Alain Prost, who is out of the race, leads the World Championship with 29 points. Senna is second with 27. Third is Patrese with 12. As you watch the battle between the two Dallaras, and it looks as though De Cesaris is out front now, having demoted Caffey, and behind them, the white car is Nicola Larini. Three young Italians going at it here. And Larini gets a little sideways, but he wants to make a pass. Now, one of the Williams cars is in the pit. I can't see who it is. I can't see the driver's helmet or a number on the car. It is the 5 car, and that is Terry Boutsen. And he is back on the wet tires once again, and quickly down the pit lane he goes. There is Andrea De Cesaris as you look right inside his face mask, and he struggles with the steering wheel in that red Dallara. Here's another look at the scene we saw a moment ago, as first De Cesaris, then Caffey, and Larini go up the backside. Looks like Larini recaptured the 6th position, that is, from Caffey, so move Larini up into the points. The top 6, the men who earn points on a 9-6-4-3-2-1 basis toward the World Championship, are Riccardo Patrese, Ayrton Senna, Derek Warwick, Alex Caffey, Andrea De Cesaris, and Nicola Larini as they stand right now.
Larini is doing an outstanding job. Really, the fact that his car has a terrible misfire. Every time he comes by here, you think he can't make it another 100 yards. So he's doing an excellent job to keep up with that group.
There's Derek Warwick making it through his favorite turn here in Canada, one where he very nearly drove the car into the ocean last year, and you can see the splash set up by the car.
He's catching the McLaren, Bob. Right in front of him is Ayrton Senna from Brazil, current world champion, and we've been watching for the last few laps. Senna is now just dead slow out there.
Let me ask you, John, why does Senna not pit at this point? It is his decision, I take it, whether to put on the rain tires again.
Well, if they go back and forth on the radios, Bob, and Ron Dennis is down here talking to him on every lap, and still, right there, you can see in that picture, parts of this circuit are dry. They rolled the dice, and they're going to keep the dice out there as long as they can. If it turns dry, everyone who is on reins is going to have to come in, and that would put this gentleman from Brazil back in the lead. But Derek Warwick's all over his gearbox. Derek would love to do nothing more than pass the current world champion into second place. There he goes, Derek Warwick down the inside. Senna's not going to let him through. He really should have, because for sure that McLaren has to be slower. Derek Warwick learned from Phoenix not to push it. Sit there and watch it. He went ahead and pushed it down in Phoenix, and it took him out of the race on lap 8, and there could have been a podium for him. Now let's see what Derek Warwick does.
If you wait, sooner or later, Senna will have to stop because it continues to rain here. We'll watch and see if Senna doesn't stop this time. Down in the stadium section, hard right-hand turn. Now, if the cars were at speed, they would go all the way off to the right of your picture over the white line. Obviously, because of the reduced speeds in the rain, they won't be doing that, and the advantage to them is fuel. All of the drivers, to a man, were worried about fuel here in Canada. The cars rev for a long time. Your foot is down most of the time, accelerating out of turns, and you use a lot of fuel here. And Senna goes straight off to the pits. So Senna is now in the pits. He'll make a quick right and left-hand turn, and then come on into the McLaren pits, and nobody does it better. Let's go to Marty.
Well, guys, you are absolutely right. They were gambling, hoping that the rain would stop again and that they would be out there on slicks when everybody else would come in. Well, the gamble didn't work, and now Ayrton Senna has his work cut out for him again.
Well, let's see if he can do what he did a year ago in Japan when he ran on a dampening track, came from the back of the field past 13 cars, caught his teammate Alain Prost, won the race, and with it clinched his world championship. There is your leader, Riccardo Patrese. Second place, Derek Warwick, as high as we've seen the Arrows team this year. Andrea De Cesaris presently runs third. Larini is fourth. Alex Caffey fifth. Rennie Arnoux up into seventh position as you watch Ayrton Senna pull off once again. Derek Warwick runs second, and we'll be back.
Device so that it will be able to be placed inside the car. And just as a computer will be able to measure the power plant of the vehicle, well, then the FOAMED heart monitor will be able to measure the power plant of the driver.
Back back on the racetrack. You're looking at a replay of the Coloni car. Watch that left front. There goes the lug nut, and watch that left front tire on the car of Roberto Moreno of Brazil. Well, you won't see it, but that tire eventually did depart, and Moreno is limping around out there on a tricycle.
It has to be a very bad picture for the gentleman who was working on the left front corner of that car to see the lug nut spinning off. They have safety pins in these cars that should actually have kept the lug nut on and let the tire go ahead and wobble, not totally freeing itself, but it must have been on there so long that it broke through the safety pin.
There's Derek Warwick in the USF&G Arrows. What a day he's having, up into second position, and look at the rooster tail he throws up. The Ferraris, both of which are now out of this race, as you take a look there at Nicola Larini, the new third-place runner. The Ferraris were the fastest cars in practice on a straight line, and look at him steering that. There's Andrea De Cesaris and the Dallara for a quick pit stop.
And as you can see, they are putting on rain tires back off of the slicks. That's one of the reasons that De Cesaris was slipping and sliding so much, but now he has the grooved rain tires back on, and that pack of three, which I thought was totally going to destroy one another, have been spread out a little bit now. You have Tracy first, Warwick second, Larini third, and then Andrea De Cesaris before he stopped was fourth. One thing we should point out that Senna, after his pit stop, came back into sixth place into the Grand Prix.
And there you see Moreno still hanging tough with that brand new Coloni car. It's not car number 5. Lesank is one of the sponsors on that car, which confuses a lot of announcers. But it looks like Moreno is going to try and get back. If he's not able to get back in this race, we will be down to 13 cars, 24 laps into a race scheduled to go 68 laps. Half the field is now gone.
The suspension and the chassis are so stiff in these Formula One cars now that you can actually drive them on 3 wheels, depending on how far you have to go. Now, if he's on the backside of the circuit trying to get through the pits, he is going to wear down things like his left front
Caffey
off, again doing a little bit more agricultural racing, as we very nicely try and say it. But he is going to have some damage to that left front as far as the wing, and possibly if the disc is also dragging, it's going to have some problems with the brakes.
And there you saw the Coloni make it onto pit road, so Moreno's team will take stock. Meanwhile, you're watching Nicola Larini making his way around, regarded as perhaps the finest of the new generation of young Italian drivers, and there are a bunch of them in Formula One. There you see Roberto Moreno, the lightest man in Formula One, soaking wet with his uniform and his helmet and his driver's shoes. He weighs about 139 pounds.
Very small gentleman, but of course that is an advantage.
There you see Ayrton Senna now out there on rain tires. As John mentioned, he entered the racetrack in 6th position. He is now up to 5th place, having gotten by Rene Arnoux, which in itself is a Sisyphean task. And he presently runs in 5th behind Patrese, Warwick, Larini, and Caffey. The gap is 27 seconds between Patrese and Warwick. Larini another 15 seconds back. 6 seconds further adrift, you'll find Alex Caffey. Another 6 seconds back to this man, Ayrton Senna, the defending world champion.
You know, Bob, you mentioned spray a little bit, and now as the cars go by our viewing area here, we can see the rooster tails coming off the back of these Formula One cars. And when it was half dry, half wet, the spray wasn't a problem. But really the most difficult thing in driving under wet conditions is that you can't see where the heck you're going if you're following another competitor. There's a very small rain light just on top of the gearbox. And there are times when that's all you can see. You hear a race car driver say, I can't see anything in the wet, but people still think they can see something. Well, they can't.
Here is action once again. The two Dallaras running in tandem, and it looks like Terry Boutsen and Williams trying to go around, but De Cesaris chops him off there. And moments later, Boutsen went by. Let's see if he gives him a little international sign language. No, it looks like he will not. Boutsen eventually does take the position, and that puts him up into 8th position on the racetrack. Look at how heavily the rain is falling now. That's right, it's lunchtime here in Canada. A nice day for it, too. What weather for a picnic, hey, guys?
It's kind of nice being in the booth here, Bob. I know how Marty feels. Here we have another one of the Dallaras off the side of the track. We can't tell exactly who it was.
I think that might have been Caffey who was off. And at the rate we're going, I'm not sure anybody is going to win this race. Over the years, the 20 Canadian Grands Prix have been very kind to world champions. 5 times the man who won this race went on to win the world championship. And that has got to be a comforting thought to this man, Riccardo Patrese, making his way around. Look at the rain coming down now. We did have some blue sky and just simple summer showers. Now, as you can see at the Jacques Cartier Bridge in the background, it is nothing but solid gray here in Canada, and it is absolutely teeming down rain, as our British colleagues might say. Let's go down to the pits now and Marty Reed. Marty, are you still afloat?
Well, to tell you the truth, this is the first little breather that all the teams have had down here. You got a shot of the one guy eating his sandwich. I got a question for you, John. The drivers, without having a tearaway up there, and obviously no windshield wipers on the old helmets, why or how can they keep their vision in this mess?
Well, that is certainly a problem. These visors are very rounded, and at speed, the visor will clear just like the windshield on an airplane. They are also very rounded, and it's just the wind blowing against the visor that will go ahead, and we have a pit stop down in the pits. We have one of the Coloni's, it's Alex Caffey and the Dallara in the car, and it looks like they are just doing nothing but changing tires. We don't see any problem with the back end of the car. All four down. Try and keep some traction coming out of the pits, but Marty, to just re-emphasize what you're saying, it's at speed when your windshield on your visor actually clears. You'll see some drivers actually put a towel on the back of their forearm, and they'll try and dry it and clear it during the slower parts of the section, but sometimes you have to wait till just nothing but air force does it down the long straightaways.
We got a glimpse there. It looked like Riccardo Patrese reached up to his visor. He may be getting some fog on the inside of that thing because it is so wet and cool on the outside, and his body heat on the inside might be generating some fog, and I think he kind of cracked his visor a little bit in order to get a little air in there and try and clear it.
And I'm sure he's taken a few deep breaths during this particular exciting event that's going on under half dry, half wet, all wet, partially dry, and now all wet conditions.
It is as wet as it can get, short of dumping these cars into the rowing canal, the Olympic Canal there in the background. There is Derek Warwick, and you can see from the camera lens in our high position just how wet it has gotten here in Canada. This is becoming a very grim task for these drivers.
One of Riccardo Patrese's first victories was, of course, at Monte Carlo, where it started to rain in the last few laps, and he spun at the Lowe's hairpin. And the rule reads that you can be pushed as long as you're out of harm's way, to get a car out of harm's way. And when he was spinning, he was very careful to make sure that he stopped in a place where they would have to go ahead and push him out of the way. One marshal simply rolled him down the hill. He restarted the engine and went on to finish on the podium in the #1 position.
Well, we'd certainly like to show. And there is Elio. Looks like the Lola has finally given it up. He is backed into the wall. We'd love to show you what it looks like from the driver's perspective, but unfortunately, both of our in-car cameras are now out of the race. Sandro Nannini is gone, as is Stefano Modena in the Brabham. So we have no in-car to show you at this point, and we apologize for that, because if you've seen it before, you know it's spectacular. There, with a long shot through a big camera lens, you see just how awful it's getting out here. I hate to keep reiterating it, but we're in a nice, cool, dry booth. Unfortunately, Marty's down there at pit road, probably up to his knees in water by now, and it has become a hydroplane festival here in Canada. As Ayrton Senna makes his way out, that is a look at ground level on pit road. There's a different leaderboard. Patrese, Warwick, Marini, Senna, Arnoux, and Danner. We'll be back. Back in Canada, Bob Barsha and John Bizignano with you. Marty Reed is on pit road, and right now the blue Ligier of René Arnoux, 40 years old, is doing everything he can to keep the red Dallara of Andrea De Cesaris behind him. This is the battle for 6th place in the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada, and De Cesaris getting really wild in the wake of the Ligier there.
I know I'm repeating myself, but you can't see anything back there. All you can do is follow that rain light and then pull out of the way, and there goes De Cesaris on the inside. Arnoux doesn't want him to do it. They touched rear wheels. Arnoux is being pushed over in the guardrail, but De Cesaris, these are the two biggest, I hate to say it, but both of these people are considered the two biggest crashers in Formula One, but they somehow got by one another.
That is certainly news for headlines, both in Italy and in France. A lot of people wondering whether René Arnoux, as we take another look at it, will be with the Ligier team next year. He has a young protege of his own that he wants to put in the car. And watch this, folks. To of the most dangerous men in Formula
inside
1.
one another. Oh, my gosh.
You don't want to touch wheels in these open-wheel cars. It'll bounce you in the air quicker than anything. Now, here's a replay of the incident between Larini and Moreno. Looks like Larini missed a shift or something, and Moreno cruised on past. Nicola Larini with a problem out there. We'll have to see if we can pick him up on our Canadian feed and find out whether Nicola Larini is still effective at this point.
The young driver who had the engine problem that we were talking about earlier. When an exhaust cracks like that, the longer you're out there with it, the bigger the hole gets. And at one point, it throws the engine so much off song that you can start burning valves and everything else on that particular cylinder. We have our leader in the pits, down in the Williams pits. We go to Marty Reed.
Well, Ricardo Patrese, race leader, into the pits, and I'm looking at the tires, and you're absolutely right, John. He's got them down very, very thin from running them a little bit too hard when it was semi-dry. But now he's got fresh rubber, and he's back underway.
But he is underway too late. I know Ayrton Senna has gone by, and I assume Derek Warwick has as well, so that pit stop is going to cost Patrese the lead as he makes his way back out onto the racetrack. Now, here is an incident that happened moments ago. As you see the Real of Christian Danner getting really sideways there, and there is the Lotus to the left of Nelson Piquet. Haven't called his number much today. He is the man everyone is wondering about. The rumors, as Marty mentioned, are flying that Nelson Piquet's days with Lotus may be coming to an end. That because of the bad season they're having, they may try to move him out of that seat, buy out his contract, and put their young English test driver, Martin Donnelly, in the car, and at least let him start to get some Formula 1 experience before the year is out. There is Derek Warwick, who by my unofficial estimation should be leading the race at this point. Good news for Derek.
I have to say that is the first time an Arrows Grand Prix car has ever led a race. They've been racing now, I believe this is their 11th season. The only time that they ever led a race before, we'll have to ask our great statisticians about this, but they qualified on pole position once with Ricardo Patrese in Long Beach, and they led for about the first 100 yards of the Long Beach Grand Prix. But right now, Derek Warwick has led a full lap in the Arrows A11.
Well, would this be a boost for the Formula 1 season to have the Arrows car win a race? In fact, if you eliminate the McLarens from the scoring this year, the first 5 races of the year would have been won by 4 different drivers with 4 different teams. But because Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna have had 4 victories in the 5 races this year, guys like Sandro Nannini and Ricardo Patrese have been kept off of the top of the rostrum. What a thing it would be if Derek Warwick, just going out of your picture to your left, there's the interval back to Ayrton Senna. If Warwick can just hold on, he's got a long way yet to go. And behind him, the fastest man under adverse conditions in Formula 1, probably the fastest man under any conditions in Formula 1, Ayrton Senna.
He's also the fastest man with no rain light. I have to emphasize that. I cannot see the rain light on the back of that car. We'll try and get Marty to check on that, but there is an option of where the officials could pull him off of his track and have him stay in the pits until the rain light was sorted out. We have 6.5 seconds between Derek Warwick and Ayrton Senna. What a proud moment for Derek Warwick.
I wonder if officials are thinking, well, since nobody's going to pass Senna anyway, who cares if he has the light? Nobody's going to overtake him. Nevertheless, you got to play by the rules. It certainly would be ironic to have Senna, who has run afoul of the rules before. I recall a Rio race a year ago, and he was black flagged for starting his backup car under improper conditions and ran all the way to 2nd or 3rd place in that race before they finally DQ'd him. So it's not out of the question. There you see the Real, I believe, Christian Danner going out on the screen to the left, being followed by the race leader, Derek Warwick. And certainly when he passes his pits, he'll be given information that Ayrton Senna is 6.5 seconds behind. Oh, and there's Dr. Jonathan Palmer in the Tyrrell, who has come adrift there. Really too bad. Looks like he's limping on that right ankle a little bit.
He certainly is limping on the right ankle.
Just across from the pits. Now, that's out of our view from the booth, but that is just at the start of the pit straightaway at that very dangerous 13th turn on this circuit. There you see where the car is parked as the Real and Derek Warwick and the Arrows come through.
I hope Christian Danner realizes that Derek's there. One problem in the wet is that you can't see who's behind you. There's so much spray that there can be a faster car right behind you, but the Real moves over, and of course Derek Warwick goes through. Senna has certainly gained some closeness to Derek Warwick on that particular maneuver. Derek was held up by Christian Danner, the German driver, in the Real. I'm sure Christian's going to let Senna through, but right now we have Ayrton Senna, the worst man you would ever want on your gearbox ever, is right behind Derek Warwick. And I just hope Derek says to himself, the Honda has the power, the chassis of the McLaren is absolutely excellent, as good as mine. I'm not going to go ahead and push this 10 tenths, 11 tenths, 12 tenths and make a mistake.
We will watch this battle now. There is the leader in the white and red, number 9, Derek Warwick. Behind him, emerging from the spray like some ghostly image, Ayrton Senna, who will no doubt take over the points lead in the World Championship from his teammate Alain Prost. If you're just joining us for this wet Canadian Grand Prix, Alain Prost made a few early laps before the suspension broke on his McLaren. We have had intermittent cloud bursts here in Canada. We've gone from wet conditions to dry, back to wet once again. We've had innumerable pit stops as drivers tread that razor edge with the treaded tires that go away so quickly when conditions are dry. But it has been raining very steadily here for the last 40 minutes or so. All of the cars are on wet tires, and you're watching the battle for the lead. Warwick, who has never seen the Formula One lead, running against Senna, who has seen nothing but leads and victories. And Warwick on the front straightaway got a little bit sideways. Here comes the corner where he had his big crash last year. He gets through okay. There is Senna.
They have to slow down there because Dr. Jonathan Palmer's car is right at the exit of that corner. And in the wet conditions, if you drifted out anywhere whatsoever towards that car, you know you're going to collect him up and knock off something on the right-hand side.
As we watch this battle for the lead continue, that is Senna against Warwick. I should point out there is a visitor here to the Canadian Grand Prix with a special interest in Formula One. Young John Andretti, nephew of Mario, cousin of Michael, who earlier this year won the 24 Hours of Daytona driving a Porsche, has been feeling out the Formula One ranks, has John. The problem, he says, is that none of the teams are taking him very seriously, he doesn't think. They all want him to do a couple of years in Formula 3000 and so on in Europe. John says, hey, anything other than the Formula One car is less powerful than anything I'm racing in right now, turbocharged Indy cars and Porsches. So John Andretti would like very much to join Eddie Cheever of the Arrows team as an American in Formula One, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Of course, there's quite a learning curve, no matter how much experience a driver has when he goes into Formula One. It's 16 new circuits, as on the inside, very easily, Derek Warwick actually let Ayrton Senna by. He took the option of remaining alive out there and keeping the car all in one spot and on the track. And now he's in that spray trying to figure out where to go, because I report that Ayrton Senna has no rain light. Ayrton Senna going very wide on that corner, getting off the brakes again. He was pushing very hard on the brakes. When he was catching Warwick, it was under braking into every one of the slower corners. It was on the brakes that Senna went ahead. Here's the replay. You can see Ayrton Senna coming up on the brakes. Warwick looked into his mirror very briefly right there, let him by, no chop whatsoever, almost collected his gearbox, but then on the very next corner, Ayrton Senna went sailing off and over the white line.
Well, now is the time to use all of your guile and to keep your wits about you, because Derek Warwick now has to hope he can force Ayrton Senna into a mistake. Now there you see the Arrows team looking a little bit second-hand there as the rain continues here in Canada, and it is really coming down, folks. Please believe me, it is raining awfully hard here in Montreal.
They're not standing in the garages, are they, Bob? They're standing out there on the apron of the pit, somehow trying to give some of their energy, wet energy, over to their one driver on the track now that Eddie Cheever retired, somehow to get a little bit extra energy, a little bit extra comfort, a little bit extra emotion to their man in second place.
Or to be there in case he needs to make an emergency pit stop should anything happen to that Arrows with a Ford V8 under its hood out there. Meanwhile, a Honda V10 powers this man, Ayrton Senna, and rumors in the pit lane say there may be V12s in these Honda-powered cars next year. That they may go from 10 to 12 cylinders in their thirst for more power, more fuel efficiency, better power-to-weight ratio, better revs. There's Terry Boutsen of Belgium, shown right now in 4th position. He has had quite a dramatic afternoon. He has spun a couple of times. There you see him twitching under acceleration. in the Williams.
It's the most frightening experience a race car driver has to face with these exact same conditions. Not only the track conditions, but the visibility is zero. As you can see, when these cars pass behind the spray of another car, you go absolutely into a total washout.
Here's a couple of guys who know each other well. Rene Arnoux in the blue car to the right of your picture. Nelson Piquet, the three-time world champion, in the yellow Lotus to the left. Huge rooster tails as the water is thrown into the air by the treads on these rain tires. Looks like Piquet looks to the inside, but Arnoux drifts across. This is how he gets his reputation. But he is in 6th place. Piquet is in 7th.
I hate to tell you, Bob, but that's the 6th place that Marty Reed said that Piquet was going to grab during this Grand Prix. So it's not Mr. Piquet's pride only that's going on down there, but also we kind of made fun of Marty a little bit, talking about Piquet gaining a point here.
Guys, wait.
Wet crow being eaten. What, Marty? Come on. What do you have to tell us?
I don't want to take credit too soon because it's still too early, but I don't know. It just seemed to me going into this race that he really had something to prove. And attrition, of course, I don't think any of us expected to be quite this high, but I think he'll keep his nose clean and keep charging for it.
Well, my hat's off to you, Marty. If you pick Nelson for 6th place here and he gets it, that is a big surprise to me because people are speaking out loud about it now that Piquet needs to have a mechanical advantage. Has to know that he has a car capable of beating everybody in order for him to drive well. And he hasn't had that with the Lotus team this year. And as a result, some of his performances have been perceived as lackadaisical, as though despite his $6 million salary, he doesn't really care about what he's doing in the last year of his Lotus contract. Nevertheless, he is out there now with rumors that his time is numbered. Oh, and looks like Arnoux got a little bit wide there.
Same place.
Amidst the rumors that Piquet may not be back next year, he is performing well, and Derek Warwick is on the grass. After a run in the lead and doing so well, he's unhooking the helmet, and it looks like Derek Warwick may be done. Let's see if this replay shows us what happened to him. He's already got his visor up.
Parking it.
The fire went out of the arrows. What a shame after a glorious run, even in the rain, for Derek Warwick of Great Britain. And this man, Ayrton Senna, is your leader. He is no longer challenged by Warwick. That makes the gap 20 seconds back to Riccardo Patrese, running in 2nd position. We'll be back to the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada in a moment.
Ayrton Senna and the Marlboro McLaren, they say it'll be at least 10 laps before they consider bringing him in to go back to race slicks, and that is only if the sun stays out as it is right now. Also, fuel will not be a problem. We thought it might be in the beginning, but because of the rain, of course, they have been able to slow down back out of the throttle a little bit, so fuel will not be a question. As I go by on pit wall, all I see is rooster tails. Can you guys tell me where Miss Budweiser is right now?
Well, I don't know about Budweiser, but I can tell you about two very disappointed young men. To the right, Nicola Larini of Italy. To the left, Derek Warwick of Great Britain. Both men had superb runs here today, and both have ended with mechanical difficulty. They are now out of the race. 9 cars remain officially running in the Grand Prix of Canada. There is Christian Danner in the Real. That is definitely off song at this point. The thing sounds like a NASCAR stalker when it goes by. Just as he did at Phoenix, I think he has popped a hole in the exhaust headers.
There's a saying, F1 spelled backwards is if, and I'm sure that's what's going through those two very talented drivers' minds right now. If I could have stayed out here, if the engine didn't give up, if I didn't have the misfire, if, then would have come the glory.
There you see Christian Danner making his way around from Germany. A good run for the Real. His teammate, young Volker Wiedler, did not make this race. Meanwhile, the battle continues behind him. I think that is Alex Caffey making his way up in one of the Dallaras. Onto the front straightaway they go. 2.7 miles, 13 turns, although it's very difficult to tell where the turns start and stop here at Canada. The entire track is virtually one long turn in one direction or another. And the cars get very close to the fans here. There's not an awful lot of runoff area. And so if you paid some of the $100 and $200 ticket prices here in Canada, you can get very close to the action. And today you also got very wet indeed.
Christian Danner in Brazil finished 14th. He did not qualify for San Marino. He did not qualify in Monaco. He finished 12th in Mexico, and he had a 4th place down to Marty Reed with an interview.
Well, Derek Warwick has made the longest trek in auto racing back towards pit lane, and Derek, what put you out?
Well, Ayrton passed passed me out the back, and when he come by me, my engine just stopped. I don't know what it was, just stopped, and that was the end of it, end of the story.
I got to tell you, you brought everybody on the team. We were right there at the time. They were on an emotional high when you were in the lead, and then when you dropped out, it was just like all the air went out of the balloon.
Well, you know, I mean, the problem was maybe we should have stopped for new wets, because my wets were looking very poor because I kept them on for so long. But the car ran perfect, and I could have finished second without no trouble at all.
After such a long time, how was it to be in the lead?
I almost forgot, actually. You know, I didn't know what to do when they hung P1. I didn't know what they meant.
Congratulations on a good ride, and better luck next time. Derek Warwick, always able to find a smile somehow.
Nice guy, Derek Warwick, and another nice guy, Ricardo Patrese, right now running in second position, but he is 26 seconds down to the leader, Ayrton Senna of Brazil. This is the 11th Formula One Grand Prix of Canada to be run here at Montreal. Way back in 1978, the man who won the first one is now the man for whom the track is named. Gilles Villeneuve, the greatest Formula One driver ever produced from Canada, perhaps the greatest driver of any stripe produced here in Canada, and certainly one of the great names that come to mind when you think about Formula One drivers. Enzo Ferrari himself used to mist up a little bit and say that Villeneuve was one of the drivers whose partnership he treasured most. And in keeping with this Formula One weekend in Canada, a new biography has been written by fellow Canadian Jerry Donaldson, outlining the life of the great race driver Gilles Villeneuve. It's a good book. I've had a look at it. René Arnoux waves Terry Boutsen past, a gentlemanly act from the Frenchman, who immediately glues his Ligier to the rear gearbox of Boutsen's Williams.
Another rumor down the pit lane this weekend was that Renault is 99% sure to be exclusive. We have De Cesaris has spun, looks like on a straightaway. He has the engine going back in gear. He's very good at bat turns. He did an excellent bat turn after coming in contact with Derek Warwick at the U.S. Grand Prix. But when they spin like that, what you have to do is disengage the clutch, because when you're going backwards with the clutch still engaged, it will cut out the engine. The engine will stall. So the first thing you have to do when you spin your car is to put in the clutch, and that also releases some control and handling. But you want to keep the engine running, so these cars have any kind whatsoever. You either have to be on a hill or someone has to give you a push if the engine does die, and even then they're hard to restart. So the number one thing is to get the clutch down during the spin and to go ahead and keep the engine running so that you can hopefully rejoin without too much time lost.
There is Nelson Piquet. You got a quick look at Terry Boutsen, and now here is Piquet. And although it looks very dark out on that part of the racetrack, the sun still shines on the pit straightaway. But at this point, after all the weather we've had this weekend here in Canada, I'm not putting anything aside. I think there may be rain out there, sunshine in here, another tornado or whatever it was we had yesterday certainly seemed like one. With the Jacques Cartier Bridge in the background and the Olympic rowing basin, you see the yellow Lotus of Nelson Piquet presently shown in 5th position. So Marty is not going to look quite like the great Carnac. He had Nelson picked for 6th, even though you and I didn't pick him at all, John. It looks as though Nelson is going to get himself by far his finest performance of the year thus far, his previous best, an 11th, and his only finish in 5 races to date.
Couldn't come at a better time, I'd say.
Let's get another weather report from Marty Reed.
Well, guys, the bad news down in pit lane again is that the rain has come back, and there are now, by our count, only 9 cars running it. This may be survival of who can slosh their way to the end.
I'm wondering, we've got, looks like Danner has spun the Real out there on the backside. And he can't do a bat turn, get this one straightened out. He's going to have to be pushed backwards.
I hope he hasn't damaged that right front. There's right up against the barrier. The marshal out there saying just hold on, all the yellow flags flying all around the car. They're trying to back him up. Looks like all 4 corners may be straight. Christian Danner just trying to hold on to that 7th position, hoping that he can grab the last point in 6th.
Well, it looks as though it is not to be at the moment. Arnoux occupies that spot. There's Andrea De Cesaris now firmly in the sights of the race leader, Ayrton Senna, coming up quickly in the number 1 car. And Senna quickly takes a wipe of his visor and makes his way around. We are now within 20 laps of the finish of the Canadian Grand Prix. Stay with us. 12 p.m. That's noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. And there you see Christian Danner has taken it into the Tuoles once again.
Well, there's an old saying for the next couple laps because there's another spin in the future. Christian Danner, again from Germany, he's from Munich, Germany, loves to go skiing. We actually tried to host him a couple times out in Breckenridge, Colorado for a few days of skiing. He's promised me this winter he will definitely be coming because the snow in Europe hasn't been worth anything for the last few seasons. Christian Danner, a fine gentleman, has a lovely girlfriend also from Munich. And one of his favorite things to do is raise cats.
Raise cats? There you see Ricardo Patrese still shown in second position, and in fact he is beginning to close the gap a little bit on the leader Ayrton Senna. It was 27 seconds just a couple of laps ago. It is now down to 20 seconds as Ricardo Patrese still has not given up hope here in Canada. Just in front of him you see the car of Nelson Piquet shown in fifth position. Only 3 cars now on the lead lap. Senna in first, Patrese in second, Boutsen in third, all running on the same lap.
Also in rain conditions, there's less stress on the engines, there's less stress on the chassis. Of course, there's a lot more stress on the driver, but some of the problems that have shown up in these, we know, V10 engines over the last few Grand Prix have mostly been due to heat problems. And of course, with the low outside temperatures here that we're experiencing all weekend long, none of these problems have shown up. There have to be perfect engine running conditions for V10 engines over the last few Grand Prix have mostly been due to heat problems. And of course, with the low outside temperatures here that we're experiencing all weekend long, none of these problems have shown up. There have to be perfect engine running conditions for these very tenuous 3.5 liter, 625 to 660 horsepower engines. That's about the only thing that's good for wet running and cool conditions are engine temperatures. One thing Derek Warwick said, he says, I got into the spray of the McLaren and the engine quit. And this is total speculation, but when you get into that spray, there's a tremendous amount of water being sucked into the engine compartment through those scoops that you see right over the driver's heads. Those are scoops that let air down into the normally aspirated system. It's a ram air effect at high speed, and there's so much air going down in there that, as I say, speculatively speaking, he could have had an electrical problem due to a large intake of moisture after sitting in the rooster tail of Ayrton Senna for a few laps.
There is Terry Boutsen, presently shown in third position, trailing car on the lead lap. Still making progress, and you can see it is patchy puddles here and there. There are some dry parts of the racetrack. It is raining very lightly now on the front straightaway, but as you can see, parts of the track are virtually under standing water. Onto the pit straightaway comes Terry Boutsen, and quickly up goes the rooster tail. It is still quite wet at this part of this Ile Notre Dame circuit. Gilles Villeneuve hard under braking as he sweeps to the right and then back to the left. Whoa, and gets a little bit sideways there.
Terry Boutsen is from Belgium and, of course, grew up on the Spa circuit, working that wheel very hard. Again, you can see that rain light showing through the mist. That's all that the driver can see when he's behind someone throwing up that much spray. Andrea De Cesaris from Italy off into the grass, more agricultural racing. Now he keeps it straight, almost goes off on the other side of the circuit. Andrea, you've only got another few laps to go, and you're trying to stay for fourth place. You need this victory. You can see the here is the replay. Trying to hold the brakes. He locks it up, slips into the grass, up over the bump. The monocoque doesn't look like it's taking much of a beating, but it really does. Up in the air, front left, right rear, all the way off the ground. Andrea De Cesaris, a perfect 4-point landing.
The original flexible flyer, Andrea De Cesaris, looks like one of Dale Earnhardt's old lines around Riverside, back when that racetrack hosted the Winston Cup cars. Nevertheless, he remains in the hunt, and right now Andrea De Cesaris, as you mentioned, John, in fourth position behind the top 3 cars on the lead lap. Now you can see the racing line drying on the front stretch here. That poses problems for these rain tires. They need that mist of spray there to stay cool and allow them to keep their traction as they channel water off through the grooves in in the treads.
I'll tell you, Bob, there's so much water on other parts of the circuit, they cannot switch to any type of a slick tire whatsoever now. And even if they do have to go some parts on a drying surface, then they can move over intentionally and go back and run in the water to cool the temperature back down on those very soft compounds.
We really don't think we can say enough about the driving ability of these men. We've made our jokes about Dick Crasheris and all the troubles Andrea has had looking at his mirrors, but men like this guy, Ayrton Senna, deserve all the credit they get for driving under these conditions at these speeds. Let's go down to Marty Reed.
Well, guys, you know, Camel Lotus has not had a lot to smile about all season long, but you can see some smiles and even a little humor by one of the team members. He's willing to sell his Camel umbrella for $5. It's a little used, but you got a great deal.
Well, at least he's the one who knows whether it works or not.
The gentleman holding that umbrella, his name is Clive, and he's what they call a tire buster. He's responsible for maintaining all the tires throughout a race weekend. Goodyear will bring over 2,000 tires to a Grand Prix weekend, and they go through most of them after 2 hours of practice and qualifying. After 4 sessions of practice and qualifying and the race. There aren't many tires left out of 2005 has been with Lotus for the last 11 years.
The leader remains Ayrton Senna. Ricardo Patrese runs in second position. The gap is now opened back up to 23 seconds. Terry Boutsen is third. The Formula One Submarine Races of Canada coming your way on this Father's Day weekend here on ESPN. We have had an absolute monsoon here as you watch Ayrton Senna in the #1 car designating the world champion making his way around Alex Caffey in the Dallara. Down the long front chute they come along the Olympic rowing basin here at the site of the 1976 Olympic Games. There you see Senna, and as you can see, it is starting to rain heavily once again on the front stretch. It has been on and off cloudbursts all day. For a while, we thought they might stop this race just past the halfway mark. And I think if you look closely at Senna, I thought he had his visor up almost completely, but it looks like it's pretty much closed. Fog on the visors, always a problem under these sorts of conditions when it's cooler outside and damp and warmer up against the drivers' faces. There you see Nelson Piquet, the 3-time former world champion, leading the second-placed Williams of Ricardo Patrese.
He will actually raise those visors in the slower corners. You have so much air going around your head in the faster parts of the circuit that the misting is not a problem. But when you go down into the slower corners, one exhale, and you can totally fog up the inside of your visor, not the outside. So as they come into the corner, you'll see them just lift it, and then they'll either let the airflow push it back down or give the head a little nod down and put the visor back down for the faster parts. Right there, wiping the visor clean. As I said earlier, some of the drivers put a towel on the back of their forearm, but now the driver's gloves go so far up the forearm that the back of the Nomex glove is used for a toweling effect, especially when you're following in the spray of something like you're seeing right now.
Well, certainly a Formula One race and the kind of conditions we've had today will try the patience of even the most enthusiastic followers, and Marty has more on that from pit road.
Well, what's really interesting is with only 9 cars still on the course, take a look at pit lane. Normally we have got everybody elbows to elbow and trying to bounce each other around to do their job. We're standing next to Camel Lotus, but you can see literally from one end of pit lane to the other, and that's the first time that's happened since this weekend began.
Very wide pit lane here in Canada. A nice racing surface, but actually the pit lane is a lot wider than the racetrack.
One reason for that, Marty, is the fact that all these teams have to pack up this evening to transport all these race cars and all the spares and all the engines and all the equipment back to their home bases in Europe. There are 2 747s sitting out at the airport here in Montreal, and before the mechanics can get dry and change their clothes, there is a little song and dance out of the Lotus boys. Wonderful knees action, guys. Kick a leg for us. There's no boredom in this race whatsoever. I can see that. But what they have to do before they can have their first beer or sit down and relax or even get dry clothes on, every bit of equipment has to be fully packed and accounted for, so that if you're out of the race, the teams have already cleared the pit lane and are busily packing up for a long flight back to Europe.
And they do a great job, those mechanics. I found out this weekend, a chief mechanic, not a chief, but a #1 mechanic on a race car, that is the guy specifically responsible for his car, makes about $30,000 a year in Formula One. Considering all of the time away from family and home, half halfway around the world, running the races, long hours, food as good as you can pick up in a brief moment between changing tires and engines and fixing and building race cars. $50,000 may not seem like an awful lot of money, and as far as I'm concerned, it isn't for all of the work those guys put in. There you see Nelson Piquet. These Lotus mechanics were dancing the day away here in Canada. And you can see on your screen just how dismal it is becoming once again. The skies have reopened. I don't know how much rain we've had thus far. I'd have to guess a couple of inches. And I'm serious about that. It has really been pouring here in Montreal. But I suppose the action will continue on St. Catherine Street and all around the restaurant district of one of the truly most international and beautiful cities in the world. Montreal, Canada, site of the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada. We'll be right back. Under a gunmetal gray sky and in teeming rain, the battle for second place in the Canadian Grand Prix goes on between Williams-Renault teammates Riccardo Patrese to the left of your picture, Terry Boutsen to the right. And even though they are teammates, they are seriously racing here. Boutsen looks to the inside, but he can't make it before the right-hander on the backstretch. Back to the left they come. And now Boutsen must be very careful indeed, because Frank Williams, who founded this team many years ago and has won world championships with it, will not take lightly to his boys putting each other out.
But there are no team rules either, Bob. They can go racing as much as they want. And Terry Boutsen, I would have to say, so far this season has been outshone slightly by his teammate from Italy, Riccardo Patrese. So this would be a great feather in the Boutsen cap to go ahead under the most difficult driving conditions yet of the season to go ahead and pass Riccardo. Boutsen has had mechanical problems in qualifying so far this season that have limited his performance in getting a good grid position to go ahead and score as many points as his teammate has. Patrese in the last two races, Boutsen coming to the inside, but Riccardo says, no, you have to get a little closer, and Riccardo goes wide on the braking, and Boutsen slips through. Riccardo lets the back end come out under acceleration and actually pulls alongside. They're actually pushing one another. In the dirt goes Boutsen. A little, not a shove, but certainly taking up all the ground he ever needed was Riccardo Patrese with his own teammate, putting him right off to the right-hand side of the circuit. You can't get any closer racing among teammates than that, let me tell you.
Ooh, I'm not sure I'd want to be
Williams, I hope he wasn't watching that on television.
I'm not sure I'd want to be in the Williams garage in a little while when that one gets over.
It's what we call a quiet taxi ride to the airport.
Oh my, very close. Riccardo Patrese got his own teammate right over onto the dirt. Let's take another look at it. Now this was down in the hairpin. Boutsen tried to go inside. Patrese looks like he missed a shift or just went a little bit wide and slipped. Boutsen took the corner, oversteering, full lock to the left to get it straight. It's a drag race between the teammates, and watch what happens when they hit this left-hander. Off onto the grass goes Boutsen, trying to find a way around. A very level-headed racer is Boutsen, and normally so is Patrese, but Riccardo Patrese has been known to get a little aggressive at times. Recall a couple of years ago when he ran a brake test on young Englishman Julian Bailey and popped his car about 5 feet in the air by allowing the two cars to bump wheels at slow speeds.
He was actually fined for that maneuver. He was trying to teach Julian a little bit of respect for more experienced drivers. I believe that happened in Spain and Portugal, and they had it on replay, and the officials fined him $5,000 for just giving a little bit too hard of a nudge in too much of a dangerous situation. And watching these two cars before we went to break, it seems like Patrese can get the power down a little bit more. Boutsen there following. He gains on the brakes. The tires might be working a little bit better, but when it comes down the straightaway, it's the Italian Patrese. The car settles back down, and he can actually accelerate away. Remember that these are similar designs, but no two race cars are ever identical, and of course, they're never set up the same. Now we have entering the mix is Piquet in the Lotus, and we'll see what happens to the traffic. Right now we have 4 of the 9 cars that are still running in this race, all in the same shot.
It is Christian Danner in the blue Real, followed by Nelson Piquet in the Lotus, then Riccardo Patrese. And now you see Piquet going wide around the Real of Christian Danner. Meanwhile, the guys battling for second place, Patrese and Boutsen, get to watch. And now Boutsen slides by quickly on the right-hand side of an acceleration. And now Patrese took the inside line. No, he's not able to get it as they make the quick right and left-handers on the backside. Here they come at you. Piquet now running in 5th position overall. Danner is out of the points in 8th. Boutsen quickly does away with him, and it looks like Patrese will get by cleanly as well. This one is not over between these Williams teammates, and valuable championship points are at stake. Sure, there's a lot of pride involved, but keep in mind that it's not uncommon in a Formula One driver's contract that he is paid perhaps as much as $10,000 or $15,000 per championship point that he wins as the season goes on. So there's a lot of money riding at stake between these two guys. Another look there at Piquet's pass on Danner. And then watch to the right of your screen as Terry Boutsen gets the power down quickly, takes the inside line in the quick right-hander, and takes over second position.
Excellent car control displayed by Boutsen in that situation. He was going faster than Patrese, and on the inside of the circuit drifted all the way across his teammate, but kept it nice and clean.
Terry Boutsen, who comes up on his 32nd birthday in July, running with his 35-year-old teammate Riccardo Patrese.
We should mention that this race might not go the full distance. There is a 2-hour rule in Formula One that no competition can go beyond 2 hours. And although the laps are counting down very quickly here now, we still might hit a checkered flag due to the 2 hours rather than the number of laps completed. And before we do that, I certainly want to wish my dad back in Des Moines, Iowa, Babe Bizignano, a very happy Father's Day. My 5th Father's Day welcome from the Canadian Grand Prix for my dad.
And I'll do the same for my dad, Bob Barsha, in Northport, New York. You're watching Ayrton Senna, who has not been beaten in a rain-drenched Grand Prix since 1984. Let's go down to Marty Reed.
Well, guys, after the first little incident between Patrese and Boutsen, I went to Frank Williams, owner of the team, and I said, any team orders now? He says, no, still only one. Don't crash.
Don't crash indeed, and they very nearly did that. Your leader is Ayrton Senna. Boutsen has taken over second from teammate Patrese. The Cesaris, Piquet, and Arnoux follow. Through the haze and the mist and the rain in Canada, in the Ile de Notre Dame in Montreal, you're looking at Roberto Moreno as he throws the right hand in the air. That means I am no longer under power, and it was a very close moment there for Terry Boutsen as Moreno almost got back onto the racing line.
You saw the white flag in the background, Bob, and this is the car stuffed into the tire wall. A bit of a parking lot there at the moment, but that white flag indicates to the drivers that there is a crippled vehicle ahead and to take extra caution. Of course, the problem was the white flag didn't come out in time for Boutsen to see it, but everyone else behind Boutsen would have been aware that the Moreno car was slowing in their path ahead.
And that leaves us now with 8 cars still running in the 21st Canadian Grand Prix. Senna is your leader. Boutsen and Patrese follow in second and third. There went Andrea de Cesaris in the 4th place car. Alex Caffey follows in the 7th place machine. The fewest finishers ever in a race before this one in Canada was 10 back in 1979. So we have already reset that record, and it remains to be seen in the few minutes remaining in this race whether or not we'll actually have 6 cars all finished to take the points under the checkered flag. It has been quite a day. Alain Prost broke Ayrton Senna's consecutive pole string, but broke 2 laps into the race with suspension difficulties. Since that time, in the continuing on and off downpours we've had today, virtually half the field was gone by 24 laps into the 68-lap race. And as you can see, cars continue to fly through standing water on the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve here in Montreal.
It's interesting to see if Terry Boutsen is actually going to go ahead and push by Nelson Piquet. I think Boutsen is quicker on the circuit, but he's not being threatened by his teammate anymore, who you can just see in the same shot there coming into the corner. And Boutsen may be just trying to take it a little bit more comfortable than he was before he was running flat out with his teammate. He realizes that he only has a few minutes, not laps, to go.
And as this battle continues, Piquet trailed by Boutsen and Caffey. What drama at the Canadian Grand Prix. You see your leader, Ayrton Senna, having pulled off with apparently a blown engine in that McLaren Honda. Hands on hips. He has come from virtually from the back of the pack after stopping for tires and made his way to the lead, had a comfortable lead of some 20 seconds over this man, Riccardo Patrese, who has since been passed by his teammate Terry Boutsen. And at this point, the order has shuffled once again. What a day for Ayrton Senna.
The first indication we had that is that the whole Williams team opposite our booth went straight up in the air, clapping and cheering before they had it on camera. It came through the headsets of their radios that now they were leading the Grand Prix. Terry Boutsen now leading this Grand Prix. He only led his first Grand Prix ever was in Mexico 2 years ago, and now if the big F1 spelled backwards if does not hit him as it did Derek Warwick and Ayrton Senna, he could be headed for his first 9 points in his first Grand Prix victory ever.
Oh boy, what a few moments now for Terry Boutsen, who has had so much trouble this year. As you see, the dejected Ayrton Senna making his way back. He will not score points in this race.
He can't believe it, Bob. He can't believe it. He's got his hand over his face. He says, I fought back twice. I passed everybody. I had virtually lapped 3/4 of the field, and here I am walking home.
That's the first time in over 50 Grands Prix that one of the top 5 drivers, among them Berger, Mansell, Prost, Senna, and Piquet, will not win the Formula One Grand Prix. This race in Canada, here is a replay as the engine, the Honda engine, normally as bulletproof as a mechanism can be in any form of racing, simply let go on the Brazilian world champion.
But you called it, Bob, at the head of the program. You said that they are the best, but they are not invincible.
Alain Prost dropped out after a mere 2 laps in this race with suspension problems, and now Ayrton Senna drops out little more than 2 laps from the finish of the race. After a magnificent driving job through absolute driving rain.
There is a lot of spray coming out of the back of the car, but you can also see a lot of oil smoke on the left-hand side of the engine. Something certainly went bang.
Let me clear up what I said earlier. The 5 drivers I mentioned, this man, Ayrton Senna, his teammate, Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell, Gerhard Berger, and Nelson Piquet have won the last 52 Grand Prix races. This will be the first victory if Terry Boutsen can win. This will be the first time a driver has won his first Grand Prix since 1986 when Gerhard Berger won his first race at Mexico. Let's go down to Marty Reed.
Guys, you know, when we were putting together all the comments of the other drivers on what makes Ayrton so good right now, we also had a chance to talk to Jackie Stewart, and he said, and he was the one who predicted that it was 3 years before Senna reached the plateau. He was right. He also said after this year, he may fall from that plateau. Maybe a little soon. 2 races in a row.
2 races that Ayrton Senna has not finished, and so, as I mentioned, he will score no points. He will not take the lead from Alain Prost in the World Championship. Prost, who is out of the race, has 29 points. Ayrton Senna, who is now out of the race, has 27 points. Riccardo Patrese has 12. Terry Boutsen, pending his appeal of his Imola disqualification, has but 1 point, but he is in great shape to pick up 9 more right now, and that would boost him into 4th place in the standings behind his teammate Patrese and ahead of Nigel Mansell.
9 points is a lot of points to gather up, and it's easier to get them in a victory than to be collecting them one by one. The flags are coming down in the Williams pits. We haven't seen a Williams win celebration for a couple years now, and it's a wonderful thing to see. Frank Williams, heavily injured and paralyzed from the waist down in a road accident around Circuit Paul Ricard a few years ago. He has to be absolutely filled with total joy and jubilation.
And the mechanics quickly make their way to the pit wall as the seconds begin to run out here at the Formula One Grand Prix of Canada. Call it sudden victory. And for all of the records that will be broken today, Ayrton Senna in 5 years unbeaten under rainy conditions, and Terry Boutsen getting a little bit sloppy out there. He must know that he is leading. He must know that he has a 16-second lead over his teammate Riccardo Patrese. And what might be going through Riccardo Patrese's mind? If he just could have held Boutsen off a little bit longer, it might be he that would mount the winner's podium here in Canada. But instead, it looks as though Patrese will be second, and his team teammate Boutsen will be first. A 1-2 sweep for the Williams team. The team that did so much of the development work on the original Honda engines. But Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell were driving the cars and winning all the races. And then the Honda engines went suddenly to McLaren, and the Williams team left without dependable and powerful power plants. The hand goes in the air for Terry Boutsen. The checkered flag is out, and he has won his first Formula One Grand Prix. There is
moments of his life right now.
Riccardo Patrese making his way around. He will finish second. And the French flag will wave. French for the Renault engines. English for the Williams Grand Prix team. Belgian flags for Terry Boutsen. Italian flags for Riccardo Patrese. What a moment. Terry Boutsen is your winner. Patrese second. Unofficially, De Cesaris third. Piquet fourth. Arnoux fifth. And Ayrton Senna sixth. We'll be right back. His wife, Patricia, probably the best-liked couple in Formula One. There you see the official results. Boutsen, followed by his Williams teammate, Patrese. De Cesaris scores his first points of the season, the 18th driver to score this year, followed by Nelson Piquet, René Arnoux, and Alex Caffey. We'll take a look at the points as they now stand. Alain Prost did not score today, but he has 29. Ayrton Senna, who dropped out on the last 2 laps, has 27, followed by Patrese. Boutsen leaps up into 4th position. Mansell and Nannini follow. The constructors' points show McLaren still out front. Williams-Renault with a 1-2 sweep today moves up into a strong second over Benetton, Ferrari, and Arrows. Marty Reed has been down on pit lane through this entire rain-drenched affair. Marty, your thoughts?
Well, as Ayrton Senna made his way back towards his pit, and it was at the opposite end of pit lane, he walked by, refusing to talk to anyone except one person. He stopped by to congratulate Frank Williams, a touch of class.
Thank you, Marty. Taking a look at our pit 6 as they turned out today. John and I enjoyed our coverage of this Canadian Grand Prix, and that you'll join us from France. I'm Bob Varsha for John and Marty. So long from Canada.